up? It's part 2 to yesterday's video. It's talking about psychedelics, mostly mushrooms. Today I want to talk about LSD. LSD, it's different from mushrooms because this one is not based off your serotonin system. This one's more based off your dopamine system. So when you have LSD in your system, you're more likely to be really energetic, to be really creative, to be really this, really that. You have a lot more energy. You can do a lot more. And also, you're in more control of yourself. There's this analogy that goes like, LSD is like driving a rocket ship. You know, clearly the rocket ship is still hard to drive, but it's like driving a rocket ship, and mushrooms is like being strapped onto the rocket ship. So with LSD, you can direct and focus your thoughts. With shrooms, that's not really the case. With shrooms, you're more likely to be under the control of the shrooms. Like, it's really hard sometimes, like on higher level doses, not the smaller doses. But on higher doses, it's actually really hard to, or it gets hard to control yourself. I wonder if that's my friend. No, that's not my friend. Wrong license plate. Anyways, it gets hard to control yourself on mushrooms. So for beginners, I'd honestly recommend LSD. And for people who don't really have any problems that they want to deal with at the moment, then I'd definitely recommend LSD. Because with LSD, you're more likely to have fun. You're more likely to be joyous. You can still get deep, profound experiences where you're where you're exploring the inner parts of the mind that you haven't seen consciously, but less likely than with shrooms, because shrooms will kind of bubble it up to the surface where you can't ignore it. With LSD, you're more it'll come to the surface, but your thoughts at that point are racing at like 1,000,000 miles per hour, and you're getting deep into thoughts, so you're less likely to actually sit there and focus on that one thought, because your mind will be racing all over the place. Yeah, for most people, I'd recommend LSD. For me, my first time tripping, I wouldn't recommend doing this, but my first time tripping, I tripped by myself. Again, would not recommend doing that. I was a young dumb buck. You know how it is when you're on your young nigga shit. So I tripped, and it was really fun. Like I journaled a lot. I drew a lot. I really explored my mind a lot, because this was the first time I've ever had psychedelics. So I really explored the mind and brought to the surface a couple of things that I was dealing with at the time, and I managed to get through them. And this is only on one tab, so standard 75 to 100 micrograms. That's like the average dose. That's the average dose for a tab. So I took this tab. I got through all these problems. I met up with my friends eventually, and I was just on cloud 9. Like, you get this on LSD, you get this sense of euphoria that's unlike other drugs, because it's euphoria mixed with exceptionally creative thoughts, and mixed with this pure joy for life, and this rapid racing mind. It's really nice dynamic, because you're enjoying life, and you're enjoying fleshing out all these thoughts, and they're going fast, but they're going fast typically for the conscious mind, for the regular sober mind. When you are on LSD, depending on your mental state, you can really just adjust to the racing thoughts. Like, they won't seem that fast to you, because you're under the influence and you have control. You have more control over your mind than regular. So it's really nice in that sense. That's with regular dosing. With microdosing, honestly, it's good. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's not good, but I wouldn't say it's as good as mushrooms for me. It depends on what you're doing. If you have to do like a creative task, or if you have to do something that involves, creativity or productivity, like especially like if you gotta sit down and bunker in and just like do something, then car just skidded. That was nice. Yeah, you'd want to take LSD. With shrooms, you're more likely to like if you're gonna hang out with people, or if you're gonna go to the park, or if you're gonna go do something like that, then shrooms are your buddy. But if you want to be productive, LSD. Another benefit of LSD, and I think I mentioned this in the shrooms video, is after taking a dose, after taking your first dose, your creativeness or your openness to experience goes up by at least one standard deviation. So let's say at the beginning you were more creative than 67% of people, or you were an average person, so you were in the 67% of people. After taking one dose, you are most likely more creative than 95% of people, because you moved one standard deviation up. You know, the whole, I think it's 67, 95, 99 or some shit like that. Yeah, so you get more creative, and this actually really helps with finding solutions to problems you may have in life, or thinking in different ways to adapt and fix your problems. And it really does help. Like, I can't think of an example, but it really does help. I've used LSD countless times for making art, for writing poetry, for even being productive. Like, I don't recommend this, but when I was going to college, I would take a microdose, and it wasn't really a microdose. I was taking a macrodose. So I wasn't taking like a full dose, like a tripping dose, but I wasn't taking a microdose. So I was still seeing vivid colors. I was still seeing. It was hard to make eye contact with people, because like the room would be turning, and like I'd try to focus on them, but I'd get this intense focus where I'm like really staring into their eyes, and then I'd get lost in their mind, because when you're on LSD and shrooms, you have this like uncanny perceptibility where you can just perceive almost anything about people and about the environment. So you know before something happens that it's gonna happen, and I love that ability, I'm not gonna lie. Another thing is, let me go so she can cross. Another thing is, with this increased perceptibility, you have to know how to harness it, because you can perceive, and then because you're on whatever drug, you want to talk about it and you want to bring it up, and you have no tact whatsoever, and you're just like delving deep, and you're overwhelming the next person. If you're with someone, you start to overwhelm them. So when you have these thoughts, it's nice to explore them, obviously, in the mind, bring them up, but try not to overwhelm the other person or overwhelm even yourself, because I mean, you can get into thought loops, and thought loops are essentially like, I mean, it basically is what it is. It's a thought loop. Your thought keeps looping over and over and over and over, and you don't realize that it's happening until like you've gone through at least like 3 cycles or 2 cycles. So you'll start to think about this thing, and then you'll think about how it leads to this, and then eventually this comes up, but then this leads to this, and then you think about this, and then this brings you full circle. So it's weird. It's like you ask a question, or you pose a question, and then your mind explores it, and then it always brings you back to that full circle, and then you have to explore it again. So, but the beautiful thing, like I said earlier about LSD, is you have more control over it, so you can easily control how you're reacting to these thoughts. That's actually one benefit of LSD and shrooms. You get this increased locus of control, or increased awareness of the locus of control you have. So the locus of control being what you can actually control in your life, and what actually matters, and what should affect you and what shouldn't. So a lot of the times, you may be affected by other people's actions, or you may like be saddened that someone is going down a certain path or whatever. And a lot of people, I mean, people tend to eventually figure out that, you know, it's their own journey. I cannot hold responsibility over this. I cannot even allow them and their mistakes to take over my emotional state, because then that gives them the power. With LSD, it brings that to you, but it brings it to a level where you're not just looking at one problem. You truly start to understand in your life what you truly can control and you can't control. So Like, I can control my actions. I can't control my feelings, but I can control my actions. So I can feel a certain way, but I don't have to react based off that feeling, you know? I can react how I want because I am the controller of this body. I am the controller of this life. LSD gives you a real sense of that, you know? And sometimes you can hear that, you know, you can hear all these like life lessons, and you'll go, yeah. Or like, you'll absorb it in, but you won't really like recall and bring it forward when need be. With LSD, it ingrains it in you to a point where, goddamn, niggas just passing red lights like nothing. Nobody cares anymore. But yeah, so with LSD and shrooms, they ingrain it into you where you don't have to consciously even think of it. Your behavior going forward is altered because you've fully fleshed out that idea in your mind, and you fully fleshed out how to apply it to your life. So that's really one of the beauties of LSD. Yeah, again, you get mood benefits. I mean, it does, it affects the dopamine system more than the serotonin system. So you're not getting like that crazy mood lift / depression lift for months after. But with LSD, you still get a glow. Like, there's an afterglow. It's for a couple days, even weeks after your trip, you'll be glowing, like with this newfound energy for life, this new positivity that you didn't know you had in you. And that's one of the good things about it. It's just with that, I've learned that you have to take advantage of that glow, because that glow won't last for a while, you know? I made the mistake of, after my first trip, I had all these lessons. I didn't write any of them down. They were just internalized, and I didn't capitalize on the glow by further instilling them into me and applying the lessons to real life. So like, one of the things I noticed is over the years I was becoming more in my shell, more like introverted, less wanting to go out and talk to people. Yeah, the LSD excuse me. The LSD showed me that one of the main things that makes me happy as a person is to have good social connections. So I didn't necessarily capitalize on it straight away with good habits. Like, yeah, I did hang out with people more. I was a little bit more positive and whatnot, but I didn't truly like build those habits, because with shrooms and LSD, they will show you where you're going wrong, but at the end of the day, it's still up to you to apply all these lessons. You know, you can't just assume that because you've gone on a trip and you've thought about it, it's going to be internalized forever and blah 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 blah. You know, life, as anything, is an ongoing process. You have to constantly work at it. You have to constantly adapt. Eventually it gets easier, of course, but you have to keep doing it in order for it to stick. So that's what happened with my first LSD trip. After I tripped again, this was like a year later, I tripped again, and then those same lessons came up, but I instilled them. Like, oh shit, low battery. I instilled them into me at that point, so I wasn't worried about not like keeping the lessons, because I realized that life was an ongoing process that you have to work at constantly. So yeah, honestly, I'd recommend mushrooms to everybody, but if a person's mind is more on the fragile / brittle side, I would recommend LSD first. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I recommend shrooms the heaviest, because I think shrooms will give you what you need in a more unfiltered way, and it'll give it to you in a way that it makes it stick. Like the LSD trips, the lessons that I've learned and what I took away from it, they didn't stick as much as the shrooms. I think that could be partly because shrooms is a more natural substance. Like, you know, you can go outside and find these mushrooms depending on where you live. You can't go outside and find LSD. LSD is derived from ergot, and it has to be chemically made in a lab. So I think because the structure of the mushroom is closer to the structure of our brain and us as an organism, I think that's why it has a more lasting effect. But hey, who knows? Anyways, yeah, I recommend everybody trip at least once. It's not for everybody. because not everybody needs to. Actually, I don't know, because I feel like everybody could do with a good exploration of the innards of their mind. You know, a good level of introspection. Because oftentimes in modern life, we don't get to introspect unless you have a good amount of time. Because people are so busy. They got to make money. They got to feed their family. They got to do this. They got to do that. You know, modern life is very busy. It's very fast. So I think everybody should put some time aside, have a nice trip, and really explore the mind. You know, obviously do it with people you trust. Don't be like me and do it yourself, unless you really want to. You know, I can't stop you. But yeah, anyways, hope y'all have a good one. It's been a real one. Deuces.